time in this role for our legislative district. So please welcome Senator Hart to Spirit Valley.
Let me see if you can all hear me without the microphone. Yeah. Okay, good. I'm going to talk about two bills that I worked on this session that I was successful with, or somewhat successful with. The first was a memorial to address the Dobbs decision that overturned Roe versus Wade. I'm pro-life. Most people in Idaho are pro-life, and the Dobbs decision mentioned about probably about 10 times that the abortion issue was a state issue, that the federal government should not have been involved in it. It also mentioned that Roe versus Wade really had no intellectual or constitutional foundation, and it was something that the court needed to address and overturn. And when I read that decision, it reminded me of a bill I ran when I was in the House back in, I think it was 2011. It was a wolf emergency bill, and I was surprised how that all unfolded. The bill went through the House really fast. They suspended the rules in both the House and the Senate. It got to the governor's desk in about 3 weeks from launching the bill. And before the governor could sign the bill, Congress took the wolves off the endangered species list. And by doing that, they took management away from the federal government and turned it over to the state government. Because when a species is so-called endangered, federal government manages that species. So we never declared the emergency because the federal government just handed us management of the wolves by taking them off the endangered species list. And then what they did is Congress restricted the jurisdiction of the federal courts from hearing cases relative to what they had just done. And what I learned through that process is there's only one court that was created by the Constitution. That was the Supreme Court of the United States. All the other federal courts are created by Congress, and what Congress creates, Congress can dictate what their jurisdiction is. So my memorial that dealt with the Roe versus Wade decision being overturned was to request that Congress restrict the jurisdiction of the federal courts from hearing cases that related to a legislature's ability to legislate on the abortion issue. And why that is important if we're a pro-life state is it would give us the ability to kind of control that issue and prevent it from getting tied up in federal court. And we know that the people opposed to the pro-life view on that would love to tie it up in federal court. So anyways, that bill did get through both the House and the Senate, didn't require the governor's signature. And so now the real work begins. I'd like to see other states pass that memorial, and I'd like to see the federal government actually do that. And I just want to point out that back on the wolf issue, there was a case filed in federal court in 2022, or at least it was decided in 2022, where the federal court was ruling on the wolf issue. It affected all the lower 48 states except for Idaho, and Idaho got carved out of that lawsuit because of the House bill we ran back in 2011. And I went to the Attorney General's office and said, well, how much money did the state of Idaho save because we didn't have to fight that lawsuit? And they thought it was about $1 million. So anyways, it works, we can do that, and so I'm gonna spend the next couple of years trying to get the federal courts to actually do that by getting more states on board to ask for that. The other bill I ran that had some success was a bill, it was Senate Bill 1110, and it would have required any machine that we use in the state of Idaho that counts votes off of paper ballots. Typically we use a paper ballot. It gets fed through a machine. The machine tallies the votes for various candidates. It would require any machine like that to use open source software. Right now, the voting machine companies program each machine for each election with a thumb drive, which is essentially has software written on that thumb drive. And the voting machine companies say that that software is intellectually protected property, and we can't see the code. So we don't know how the votes are being tallied, whether they're being tallied correctly or incorrectly. And right now, the confidence in our electoral process is very low. So we need more transparency. So what my bill would have required is that any software be open source software, in that we can see the source code, we can see the machine language, we can have more eyes on it, and we can know that the votes are being tallied correctly. Well, what happened on that bill was I got an informational hearing. It was in Senate State Affairs. They didn't vote on the bill, but leadership offered to create a working group. So over this course of the summer, we're going to have a legislative committee that's going to be formed for either 1 or 2 years that's going to investigate this issue and come back with legislation next year, hopefully. And Idaho's only one of 3 states that have addressed this issue. So I don't think we're going to clean up our election process in one bill or in 1 year. We're going to have to probably take about 20 bites at that process to incrementally make it better and better. But I think this is one of the main area, or big areas, where cheating could be going on. And we had about, I think it was 44 election integrity bills that ran this year. And mine was the only one that dealt with technology. So I hope to bring a bill back next year to deal with that. And then I want to mention one other thing that wasn't part of the legislative session, but 2 weeks ago I went down to the Mexican border in Arizona, and it is bad down there. I've been down there 3 times. The last time was 10 years ago. I was in the same spot last week as I was 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, you had small groups of illegal aliens coming across the border. They would work their way across Arizona state, about 30, 40, 50 miles, get further into the state. They carried clean clothes with them. They would dump their clothes they used to cross the desert, put on clean clothes. The vehicle would pick them up, and they'd pretend like they belonged in Arizona. Well, it's way worse right now. What you've got is, because of the Biden policy, as soon as an illegal alien is 5 inches north of that border, they basically have a Disneyland e-ticket to America, and Border Patrol processes them, and not only turns them loose, but gives them a bus ticket or a plane ticket to wherever they want to go. And so I was standing right on the border. We found this group of 12 illegal aliens. I saw about over 100 come through in 2 days. But this first group was a group of about 12, and they're just north of the border. They're standing right next to the fence. They're kind of milling around. I was with a group of folks who watched the border. They called Border Patrol. So it was in a hilly area, and we have a 30-foot wall, tall steel wall, and Border Patrol drives over the hill on the road next to the fence. And as soon as this group of illegal aliens saw Border Patrol, I got to back up. On the back of Border Patrol's uniform, it says U.S. Border Police. They're law enforcement. These people crossing the border are illegal aliens committing a crime. So you have these illegal aliens, when they see Border Patrol, they queue up like they're waiting for a municipal bus, get in line to be picked up by Border Patrol to be processed. I mean, there's no fear whatsoever that they're committing a crime and law enforcement is showing up. And so we're told that if you're against, what's happening at the border, you're racist or whatever. But the reality is, these people are getting to these places on the border through the cartels, the drug cartels. They're tracked once they cross the border. Some of them are ending up in sweatshops. Some of them are ending up as sex slaves. Some of them end up in even worse places than that. And if you have compassion for these people, you're going to want to put a stop to this and create a policy where the people who come across the border come across legally and have their rights protected. So these people are being abused. Most of them probably don't know it, and the situation is really bad, and I believe that there's probably, a couple of million coming across a year. I don't know what the number is, but it's way out of control. And I think it really threatens our sovereignty of our nation, because I don't think we can handle all these people who need, social services and are not going to assimilate. So anyways, that's a big issue. I'm going to write a report to the leadership of the House and the Senate and the governor and send something to our congressional delegation. And I went down there on my own. I think it's a big issue. I was invited down by a group in Arizona, and it's just a big issue that we all should be aware of. So if anyone has questions, I'd be happy to field some questions.
One person asked, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
To get in touch with me?
Get in contact with you.
I have some cards here. If you click onto the QR code here, it'll get you on my newsletter list.
We have an anti-QR. QR code group?
I got 3 addresses and my phone number on here
All
too.
right, I have one that will
Sure.
make a copy and then distribute it, and make sure that she does not have to scan a QR code. I know people. All right, questions left? How porous is the northern border?
I don't know. There's no fence there. I know there's a clear area along the border, and I know there's lots of sensors there, so if you try to come across, the Border Patrol will be alerted.
Anything else for the senator? Rick Gray. No, this is the one I told you to interact with over your election, so short for the audience and drain his ear after. Go ahead.
Just a quick question about, we got some legislation regarding audits following elections this year. And the term audit is misleading because the systems we use cannot be audited. We can recount manually ballots and do many other things, but the machines cannot be audited as part of your open source efforts. Since we can't really see what's in the machines, why are we calling them audits instead of something more appropriate such as recounts, counts, or whatever? It's misleading and unnecessary information.
Right, and it doesn't do any good to do an audit if you're counting the same counterfeit votes over and over again. So, good point.
A work in progress. Now, can you guys project or do you need me to walk back to you? Project.
I'm just wondering, with all of these illegals coming across into our country, how much is it costing us? Is there medical, housing, schools, costing us? People have the idea what it's costing. Surely they would look at something about it.
I'm a freshman senator, but I did serve 8 years in the House from 2004 to 2012. And I did run a few bills to deal with the illegal alien problem. It's a federal issue, so it's hard to deal with that on the state level. But anyways, I did a calculation on how much we spent each year in the nation supporting the illegal alien population who's not assimilating and who needs social services. So I remember what I came up with was it costs more to support the illegal aliens each year than it would have cost to build the wall, which is 1,900 miles long, with brand new Cadillacs put vertical with the hood and the engine buried in the ground and the rest of the car sticking up out of the ground. So that was cheaper than dealing with this illegal alien issue year after year after year.
I think this is a fantastic topic, but I want to redirect for our region because these are all complaints that Russ Coulter should be addressing. What is he doing at the federal level? This is the state level on this particular table. Cowboy hat.
Yeah, thank you. So regarding your audit, your committee you put down, how do you assess the people that are there are going to be unbiased and don't have agendas more towards people that don't want you understanding how the voting software is correctly made?
I don't know. So I requested certain membership. It's my bill, my idea, so I went to the pro tem and I requested certain people to be put on the committee, but it's his decision and the speaker's decision. But I would hope that no matter which side of the aisle you're on, you would be in favor of honest elections. And what I've learned in my years in the legislature is most people in the legislature, even though we disagree with some of them, they are there for I don't know, purist reasons. They're there to promote their agenda, which they actually believe in, and there's not too many that I would say are corrupt or are there for some other agenda. So we'll just have to see how the process works out, but I think it'll work out well.
Another question?
Yeah, not sure where to address this question, but I understand it's really hard to get squatters off of your land. Somehow that might have been written into law decades ago, because I've heard from people that they allow somebody to live there in a box or something, and years later they still can't have them removed legally.
You know, I know there's a statute on that, and I know when I was in the House 10 years ago, we shortened the amount of time that, I know we dealt with that issue and we made it a little easier for a landowner to enforce their property rights, but I'm not up to speed on that. But you know, the Idaho code is online. If you go to the legislature's website, you'll find it there. You can try to do that research yourself and read up on
I'm
the law.
concerned because of the amount of 6 million, 7 million illegals trucking around. I just want to see them in my backwoods lighting cook fires
Yeah.
in July, that sort of time.
Well, you know, our nation is the authority in our nation comes from we the people. And we the people have been not active enough. But I do want to say too that one difference I see today versus before is we have a lot more conservatives who are active in politics. Before it was mostly the left that had the active people, but now the conservatives have sort of risen to the occasion. And I guess I disagree a little bit with Dale Hawkins. I think that we're going to see the legislature move further to conservative values, and I think we'll have a more successful session after the next election.
So with